I can't tell you how pleasing it is to be out and about and somebody comes up to me and tells me how much they enjoy these episodes of getting to know your Indiana neighbor. Or when's the next one going to be? I told you a little bit earlier I was going to take a little bit of a break to work on other projects, and I've done that. And projects of which I am looking forward to, and I hope you are too, but details just a little bit later. But today, let's focus on our next Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor. The subject today is Dr. Brian Harmon. Recently, Dr. Harmon was named the new school superintendent of Loogootee Schools. But he's much more than that, and you'll find out in this episode. But I will tell you, there is a spoiler alert. The first 5 minutes of the video may be a little bit of a tearjerker. As you may or may not know, Dr. Harmon lost his beautiful wife, Debbie Harmon, just a year ago. And the first 5 minutes in song from Dr. Harmon will be a tribute to Debbie Harmon, somebody we all deeply miss. After that, Dr. Harmon will talk about an abundance of things that have happened over his lifetime. What was he like as a 10-year-old? And things like that, and moving forward. So let's not wait any longer. In tribute right now to Debbie Harmon, in song, our next Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor, here's Dr. Brian Harmon.
It's late in the evening. She's wondering what clothes to wear. She puts on her makeup and brushes her long blonde hair. And then she asks me, do I look alright? And I say yes, you look wonderful tonight. We go to a party and everyone turns to see this beautiful lady that's walking around with me. And then she asks me, do you feel alright? And I say yes, I feel wonderful tonight. I feel wonderful because I see the love light in your eyes, and the wonder of it all is that you just don't realize how much I love you. It's time to go home now. I've got an aching head, so I give her the car keys. She helps me to bed, and then I tell her, as I turn out the light, I say, my darling, you were wonderful tonight. Oh, my darling, you were wonderful tonight.
Welcome to Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor. And that was quite an opening, wasn't it? Brian Harmon obviously has a few more talents than admin and education. And we appreciate it so much, Brian. And we'll talk about that talent and your musical passion as we go along. But if we can, let's just start from the beginning. Let's go back to when you were born, where you were born, a little bit about your parents and siblings.
Okay, I was born in Princeton. My dad's family's all from Princeton, Oakland City area. Mom was from Shoals, and her family was from there. I began school in Shoals in kindergarten, graduated from there. Let's not talk about what year that was. It's been a few years ago when
1977.
Yeah, it was 1977. Yeah, you've done your homework, haven't you?
We won't talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I got you. I've got two brothers, Barry and Brad. Brad lives here in Loogootee. He's married to Dina. Her maiden name was Davis,
Sure.
Dina Davis.
Mhm.
So, and
Talented in
yeah,
her own right.
absolutely. They both got children. My parents, Sam and Frida, they live up by the lake, up by Boggs, on that cut across road that goes to St. Mary's. And I was raised out on 550. My brothers and I were raised in the country, so we grew up, near the river, and we fished and hunted and roamed the woods, out uh, down through Lost River and out through 550 and into
All
Austin in
those
that
things
area.
good old
Yeah,
Martin County boys
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Even today.
Yes, yeah, even today. So it was Dad was a school administrator, teacher, coach, school administrator. Mom was a teacher at the elementary for her entire career. I was the only sibling that went into education. My two brothers decided to take other paths, but it's been good for me. I don't have any complaints. I had wonderful parents and uh, a great childhood, and I tried to model that for my children as well, and in their upbringing, and I hope that I did a good job of that. And I got interested in education, and that kind of led me to where I am today.
Well, let's go back to 10-year-old Brian Harmon. What was 10-year-old Brian Harmon like in Shoals, Indiana? And what aspirations, if any, at that time in your life did Brian Harmon have?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up 10 years old, because that was a significant time in my life that had an impact on me. Early on, I was thin, as you might imagine, and I was one of the shorter uh, boys in the class up until I got into high school. So I wasn't terribly successful in the athletic realm. I was always good at school. I'm a good test taker. I was good at studying. I spent time in the library and did those things.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, yes, we both did.
No,
Yes, I
no.
think I remember seeing you in there.
No,
Greg.
you did not see
Yeah,
me.
okay. So I was really interested in flying at that age. I really wanted to be a pilot, and then we'll talk later about that.
All right.
I ended up doing that, but not in the manner that I
Mhm.
had hoped. And I had visions of joining the military, Air Force in particular. And
At 10 years old.
yes, yeah, I did, yes, and being a pilot. And had an accident when I was 10. Got shot in the eye with a BB gun, and the BB lodged in behind the eyeball. And Doc Beanblossom was our neighbor at that time. He just lived right up the road.
Mhm.
So I told Dad, I said, I think that BB hit me in the eye. Oddly enough, there wasn't any initial pain. It was numbness. I think, shock or whatever. It didn't really hurt at the time. So he said, "Oh, I don't think so. I'm not sure that would have happened." I said, "No, I'm pretty sure." So he took me up to Doc, and Doc took a look at me, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm calling." I think it was Dr. Schaefer at the time at Washington, who had a ear, nose, and throat, or uh, an eye doctor in Washington next to the hospital. Took me there. They examined me, and he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "This is not good." So they called Vincennes, and then they took me to Vincennes. I ended up in Evansville with a team of 3 doctors, and Dr. Cantwell was the lead doctor, and he's since passed, but he he was the leader of that team, and the two of the doctors wanted to just remove the eye and put in a false eye,
No kidding.
and he did not want to do that. He said, the technology will exist someday where they'll be able to do things with that eye, but they were worried about infection because the BB was still lodged in behind the eye. The BB grazed the eye, hit the bone, and then lodged in behind. So they had to go in surgically and remove the BB. And then I had to take injections into the eye for antibiotics for months. Um, After that, I was strapped in a bed for, I think it was 2 weeks, with a strap over my chest and over my legs and over my waist, patches over both eyes for a couple weeks. May have been 3 weeks. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. But that changed the course of where I was headed at an early age. That was going to make it difficult to get into the military or to be a pilot. So I mean, it's interesting that you bring up that particular age.
Yeah, because
that's
if I
when
would
that
have said
happened.
9, it would have been boring as heck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you go
Yeah,
10 and all these
yeah,
things happen.
yeah,
So because of the vision of
yeah.
one doctor into the future
Yes,
that said, hey, one of these days
yes,
we can
yes.
correct this. Well, is it totally corrected? How was it corrected?
Well, it's again. I had two. Dr. Bauer here in town is amazing, and
He is
he's
amazing.
yes,
Or he was amazing.
yes,
Still
yes,
is, but he's
yes,
retired now.
yes, and he has kind of brought me through and mentored me through this process. I've had two detached retinas. Both have been repaired. I've had lens replaced. So I've had multiple surgeries. I've had the retina lasered down. To give it some stability.
Mhm.
So it's about 20/40 currently
Okay.
corrected,
Yeah.
which is better than it was originally. And you forget. I guess that depth perception of having two eyes. So when I played baseball in high school, I was a pitcher. Also, when I played first base, tall, left-handed.
Right.
So I would always I'd always swing at the first pitch. I knew pitchers didn't want to get behind in the count, and it was difficult for me to determine a curveball because I didn't have the same depth perception that others had because my vision wasn't 20/40 in high school. They repaired that, later. So I couldn't see the rotation on a curveball. So ultimately, I couldn't hit a curveball. Well, typically pitchers like to get ahead in the count, so I'd swing at that first pitch, and I had a decent batting average really from doing that. They really never figured out that I couldn't see the ball.
Wow. That's amazing. We have a couple of things in common there. I too have had two detached retinas,
I did not know
one
that.
in each eye, in fairly recent time, in the last 10 years. Dr. Bauer is there something to this, Dr. Bauer?
Yeah, yeah.
And
exactly.
also, I couldn't hit a curveball.
Yeah,
And I had perfect vision back then.
yeah,
So we have some things in common.
yeah.
Musically, we don't as far as
Yeah.
inclination, but
That's kind of it.
that's amazing. So let's forward to your high school days a little bit. We talked a little bit about it, but musical interest. What did you like? What were you a nerd first of all? You liked to go to the library. Were you a nerd? Did you like music? Maybe wasn't mainstream at the time.
I think one of the things that's helped me in high school and in my career is I've had the ability to mix with a variety of people. My parents taught me to treat everybody the same, irregardless, and I think that served me well, in my career. So at times, if I needed to be a nerd, I was. I was a good student, and
Well put.
and I studied relatively hard, to get the grades that I needed. But if I needed to go out and clean fish and spend the weekend at the local lake, I could do that as well, and I could mix with a variety of people. I played baseball, basketball. I ran track. I played golf. Ran cross country in high school. Wasn't particularly good at any of them, but had some good teammates, and we had some good teams back in those years that I managed to be a part of. Also was a part of school plays, and did that. Again, wasn't particularly good at it. I was participated in band. I really enjoyed band. I originally joined because um, all the girls took band.
I knew it.
So that's that. I thought, that sounds like that's a place where I ought to be. So, I joined band. And,
Partaking.
yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And played percussion and a little bit of saxophone, but mainly percussion. Became interested in that. And then since then, music has been a major part of my life, and it's been a major part of my therapy of late. In the last year
Mhm.
to kind of get back to those roots. And I've gotten together with friends of mine that I played music with, you know, nearly 40 years ago now, that we played dance music. Um, Bill Bauer, Kirby Richardson, Sherry Gallion. I played music with them, in my 20s, and Dale Albright, who has since passed, but uh, was a part of that band as well. And we played music all over, and we had people that came to our dances, and my parents were okay with it. The environment may not have been the best, but I was there to play music and started singing. Bought my first two guitars when I was 21, and started to pick up the guitar. Because once I started singing, it's really difficult to sing to drums, and accompany yourself. So I decided I need to pick up an instrument, and guitar seemed like the one to choose. And so I just learned from the people that were in the band, and I've really enjoyed that, throughout my career. We get to a point where, um, life throws us a curveball, and we've got to figure out what the future holds from there. And it's nice to have those things that are lifelong. Golf for many people is something that they play, well into their years and brings them joy. I'm not a huge golfer, and uh, had a car accident about a year ago with Ty and I, and messed up my left shoulder, so probably won't be a golfer. But music's that for me. It's therapeutic. It's comforting. I play guitar pretty much every day, every evening. Before I go to bed. I don't watch a lot of TV.
So as high schoolers, you had a band and you played dances.
Yeah.
What was the band called?
Uh, the original band I played was called the Bower Boys, and then when we pretty much finished up, we were called Union, was the name of the band. And then later in life, I've played with church groups.
Mhm.
I've played at church. I've had the privilege of sitting on drums behind Michael Cochran, who's part of Cochran and Company, with Antioch Church, and he's a fabulous talent, by the way. And I felt privileged to have the opportunity to play drums for him some at church. I played in a mandolin in a bluegrass band for a little while with Mike Cavanaugh and uh, and and some of the Buncombe Valley Boys. I don't. They needed a voice, really. I didn't really play mandolin, but I learned enough to at least play with them. So I played with them for 5 years. So off and on, I've done different things with different groups,
So
over the years.
even today, anytime says, "Hey, Brian, let's get together and do a little jam session," you're up for it.
We do it twice a month with Bill and that group and some others. So we get together at my parents' house. We probably had, I don't know, 25 people there the last time we got together. They're just jam sessions, but
Mhm.
family, friends bring lawn chairs and come and listen while we play. We get together a little bit at Bill's house and play music. It's just it's something we all enjoy doing, something we all have in
Mhm.
common, and we've all um, you don't make it this many years in life without having some tragedies in your life, or heartaches in your life, or things that you have to work your way through and process your way through in order to stay functional and stay productive. And so I think music's kind of been that for me, as well as my work. I really enjoy my work. I feel privileged to be here at Loogootee and serving as superintendent. Um, that's it's my honor to do that, and I intend to do the best job that I can. I was at Princeton. I was but prior to that, I was at Bar Reeve as superintendent before that, and Shoals before that, and then had a teaching career at North Putnam and at um, Springs Valley. And I think all of that prepared me, taught me lessons of how to treat people, how to work hard, how to be good at what you do. And I learned early on in my career that budget and being good at that was going to be important to be successful as a superintendent. If you can't balance the books and if you can't maintain the budget, you're not going to have a job very long. And I saw in a couple instances superintendents early in my career that made either mistakes in the budget or weren't monitoring the budget properly and got the school corporation upside down financially, and they didn't survive very long. And um, I may not be the smartest person in any room, but I do pay attention, and I recognize that I needed to be good at that. So I called Dr. Tom Miller at the time, who was superintendent at Washington, and I'd heard he was a budget expert, and I said, "Hey, I'm the new superintendent at Shoals. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to do a budget. My days are pretty good because I really don't know what I'm not getting done." And he kind of laughed and he said, "Yeah, come on down and I'll help you out." And so he taught me how to do it. I became proficient at it over time, and now I help other schools, and I help new superintendents. And I think part of that, Greg, is I miss teaching, and you don't get to do that in the superintendent's chair. And that's kind of my teaching fix, so to speak. I get to teach budget to beginning superintendents, and that's fun for me. And they pay me to do it. It's even better.
Can't beat that.
Yeah. So
what do you know, Dr. Harmon, in your profession today that would have really been helpful maybe in your early days as superintendent?
I think I don't know that I would point to one thing in particular. I discovered through high school and beyond and college and trying to fit in, I needed to develop a skill set that accommodated success. And I look for that in other people. So I learned from watching others make mistakes. I use this example sometimes. I worked for a superintendent early on, a fine person, but when he looked to hire staff, he wanted to be the shining star in the room. I think that was important to him. He wanted to be the smartest person in the room. So it appeared to me when he would hire individuals, they would be people that would rely on him for our guidance and steering. And I thought early on, I want just the opposite of that. I want to hire the best people I can find, and I want to be the least intelligent person in any room that I'm in. And I hire
Not today.
Yeah,
Clearly.
and I'm going to turn them loose and let them do their thing, and that's going to help with my success. And I feel really strongly about treating people the way I would like to be treated. And I know the good book tells us that, and I was raised that way, and I think that I live by that. I try to treat people the same. I try to converse with anyone that I need to about any issue that that might come up, and then I try to work hard. And I think that those skill sets have allowed me to have some success. I've been blessed in my career to be able to work within good school corporations and work with good people and hire really good people. I look back now, Greg, on some of the individuals I hired as um, young administrators and where they are today. And many of them have progressed. They were talents, when I hired them. The only one I would say that I would be just terribly disappointed in would be probably Jeff Doyle.
Well,
yeah,
we all are.
Yes, exactly. I hired
We all
Jeff
are.
as athletic
He
director.
had such promise.
He did.
I don't know where it went.
He did. I hired him as athletic director when I was at Shoals, And of course, I kid him about that, that he was my only disappointment, but he takes it pretty well. But really, I look back at the career that I've had and the individuals that I've hired, Travis Madison and Ty Mungle and Eric Goggins, and, many of them have just gone on and had the skill set to be successful themselves and have very successful careers. And I take some pride in that. If I had no other talent, I had some degree of ability to identify talent when I saw it. And I would say the same thing about teaching. I told the teachers here in our first meeting, I came in on March 1st, which is an odd time for a superintendent transition, in a school year. But I told the teachers, I said, Loogootee has a lot of great stuff going on. I mean, they really do. That's one of the reasons it really interests me to come here. One is, I wanted to get closer to family, with my circumstances. It was time for a change for me. And two, Loogootee's a really top-notch school. For a 1A school, they've got a depth of curriculum that you just don't see in technology and the Lion manufacturing and the Project Lead the Way and the dual credit courses. It's amazing, really. And that doesn't get publicized that much. I knew it because I've got ties to Loogootee. Debbie was from Loogootee, and I've got those ties here, and I've got, a brother that lives here in Loogootee, and I've got kids that live here in Loogootee. So I knew about that, but a lot of people don't. There's a great teaching staff, a dedicated teaching staff, and I told the teachers, I said, I can't describe for you, or I can't list for you necessarily every single skill that it takes to be a great teacher. I know it's complicated. I know it's a mix of talents to be a great teacher. But I can tell you this, I know it when I see it. You sit in a classroom and you see a great teacher teach. I mean, you know that's great teaching. I've gone into classrooms before to evaluate a teacher, when I was at the building level was a principal. And I get about 15 minutes into the lesson and I'm going, I haven't written anything down yet. And it was because I was engaged in that lesson. That they not only had engaged the students in that lesson, but I was there to evaluate, and they engaged me in the lesson so much so that I got sidetracked from the evaluation.
You talked about moving back here
Yeah.
with your circumstances, get back to family.
Yeah.
You were in the North Gibson school community, right, for
Yep.
11 years.
Yep.
I would guess it was a very difficult decision for you to leave Barre to go there. And I would guess, tell me if I'm wrong, it was just the opposite, an easy decision, but coming to Loogootee. But tell me how that materialized, when maybe you were first contacted, if you can, and the circumstances surrounding that hiring process. I know they wanted you. I've seen Chad Wade tell people that we wanted, and then it was mutual. But tell me a little bit about that process.
So, I had fully intended really to retire every place that I was. I have a tendency, if you're going to ask people to work hard, you should work hard yourself. You should model that behavior. And so, at Shoals, the opportunity came up at Bar Eve, and at the time, the circumstances were right with myself and my family to make that move, and it was more lucrative for me. And raising 4 kids, 4 children. Lori's the oldest, and then Josh, and then Luke, and then Ty is the youngest. And you need, it takes money to do that. So it was more lucrative and in a position that I enjoyed. I fully intended to retire from Bar Eve, and North Gibson came knocking. They have Toyota down there, which employs about 8,000 people with Toyota and its subsidiaries. And they were going to build a new high school and do, tens of millions of dollars worth of work. And they wanted somebody that knew what they were doing with the budget. And frankly, they made me an offer I couldn't turn down. And I had no intentions of going to North Gibson at the time. I planned on staying at Bar Eve, and they said, "Well, come down, and talk to us. Come down, and talk to us." And so I go down, I talk to them, and I thought, what could that hurt, you know? So I go down. It was a really good school board, really engaged school board, really committed school board to what their vision was and what their plan was. And I came back, and Debbie goes, how'd the interview go? I said, it was really good. It was a good board. It's a, nice school, bigger school, it had more help, and this kind of stuff. And she said, well, what are you thinking? I said, I like it at Bar Eve, and they've been good to me here, and it's a great school as well. And I've got more I want to do here, and that kind of a discussion. And so I get a call back from North Gibson, from the board president. He goes, hey, you want to come down and have lunch? And I said, yeah, I'll come down and have lunch. So I go down, I have lunch, and I mean, it was he said, well, we've talked to the board, and he said, I'm prepared to make an offer. I said, oh, okay. And
I'm not prepared, right? You
yeah.
are prepared.
And he goes, here it is. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. I said, I've talked to the board, and this is our offer. And I looked at him for a minute, and I said, let me talk to my wife. So I went back, talked to Debbie, and it was something we needed to do. And it gave me some larger school experience, a large 3A school versus a 1A school, which I'd been in previously. And at that time, I was talking to certain legislators and about maybe making a run at state superintendent of public instruction at that point in my career. So in order to make that jump, I needed some larger school experience, would have been helpful as well. I've since decided, now it's an appointed position, and that didn't transpire. The course of my career went a different direction, but I was seriously considering a state run for public instruction.
Wow.
During that time frame. And then, Debbie passed over a year ago, and I was driving, 45 minutes from Washington. Her mother had passed about a year previous, and I know you know the family well, Patty of ALS, and Debbie was a primary caregiver, for her mother during that time. So we located a place in Washington, so where Debbie didn't have a long drive, and she worked for Pam Lockmiller at Pam's Styling Room, there for off and on for many years. And so I wanted her to have a relatively short drive, and then I would have a longer drive, but we were, not in the middle, but close to where we could access both locations. And then the plan was to, relocate, when I retired and what happened there. And so I was driving 45 minutes into a different time zone and not seeing any of my kids,
right.
Once Debbie passed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
or
opportunity,
grandkids.
or grandkids, mm-hmm. Yeah. And the opportunity came up when Loogootee opened up. Chip did a wonderful job here and worked hard. Chip Mahaffey as superintendent, and he had an opportunity that came in his life to work for Athletes in Action, and I envy Chip. Chip is a man of very strong faith.
As you are.
And well, yeah, my faith was shaken after Debbie's passing. I had some anger there, of how could this happen. And I credit Father Walker, for and I'm not Catholic, but wasn't raised Catholic, but Father Walker reached out to me when he didn't have to, and was a blessing to me to help me, get through that and make that walk. And all of that's a process, Greg. It's difficult. I won't, and I know others have been through that, and I won't say that it's easy, but it's a process to get through, to walk through. And ultimately, my goal has been to focus on being more thankful for what I had than only focusing on what I've lost. But that's not an easy place to get to.
Assuming you're still working on that.
I am working on that, but I'm much better. I'm to a point now where I'm thinking about what's next.
Mhm.
You know, what do I need to do, and where does the path lead me, and you know, I'm there. That's where Debbie would have wanted me to go. If the situation would have been reversed, that's where I would have wanted her to go. We actually talked about that. I got really sick in 2014, really sick. Ended up at Mayo Clinic and lost 50 pounds. And I was probably 30 pounds lighter than I am right now, you know, and I'm fairly light, you know, right now, reasonably so. And so I got pretty sick and they couldn't figure out what it was. They eventually found it out, but at that time, you know, we had some discussions about that because my family doctor, Dr. Holzapfel, had said, I mean, he kind of looked at me and said, and Debbie was in the room, and he said, Brian, I don't know. He said, I don't know if you're going to make it through this. And you know, when your family doctor tells you that, you're going to listen. And basically, was saying you might want to get some things in order because at that time they just couldn't figure it out. I'd had a number of tests done. It all turned out okay. You know, it all turned out fine, and I got through it. It was a couple year time frame to get through it. You know, got back to work. North Gibson was great to me. They allowed me to work half days. You know, you lose 55 pounds quickly. I did that in 3 months. You lose your energy, you know, your ability your stamina to be able to do that. And so that allowed me they were good to me down there. They were really good to me. And I had great help. Eric Goggins was my assistant superintendent down there. And he picked up the ball when he needed to. And they set me up a home office to where if I couldn't make it in, you know, if I just didn't have the stamina to make it in that morning or that afternoon, they set me up a home office. I could work from home. So they were just so good to me. And you know, and I think they would tell you that I did good things for them as well.
Sure.
So, you know, that's kind of the process that's gotten me here. And I am spending more time uh, with the kids and grandkids, and that's good. I need to take up, you know, some of the slack that Debbie would have done, you know, in in my stead if I were still working, and I'll figure it out. You know, I'll figure it out from here, and
You know, the irony, May 11th was the date of your wedding.
yes,
It was the date of Debbie's passing,
yes,
and that's so ironic. You talked a little bit about the healing process that's still going on. Talk a little bit, if you will, about your travels recently to Scotland, and if you're able to tell the story that you told me, shame on you, Taya.
yeah,
But Taya got you to Scotland, did she not?
she
And
did.
it helped you. It's
It
helping you
did.
heal a little bit.
It did. So the Debbie and I talked about going to Scotland, and Taya lives in Scotland. She's a chemist for a pharmaceutical company over in Glasgow, Scotland, and her and her husband live over there. They've been over there 3 years now, and so she wanted me to come visit. And I retired in December, and you know, was just you know, as I said, to get back closer to the kids. And she said, "Well, you need to come to Scotland." And I was like, "I don't." I was just a little worried about that trip. I mean, it's a long trip, and was hesitant about doing it. So she just kept talking, and I think she was in. Uh, I think she was in uh, contact with the other kids too. They were all putting pressure on me. You know, you need to take this trip. You need to take this trip. So one night, I don't know, it was I was tired and she caught me in a weak moment. And I said, yeah, you know, I guess I could come to Scotland, you know, thinking, you know, yeah, I'll think about it later. I'll look into that later. Taya, of course, being Taya, she calls me about 45 minutes later and she goes, hey, Dad, what are you doing? I said, well, not too much. You know, I just talked with her. She goes, well, I've got the tickets booked. And I said, you what? And she said, I've got your tickets booked. And she said, I put it on your credit card. I said, well, for how long? And she said, 3 weeks. I said, 3 weeks? Ty, I can't be gone 3 weeks. She said, Dad, yes, you can. You can be gone 3 weeks. You're coming to Scotland. Tickets are booked. They're on your card. I booked your business class. You're coming to Scotland for 3 weeks. And it was a good trip.
This was February?
February, yeah.
Cold, gloomy.
Yeah, cold.
Scotland,
Yes,
as you think,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but it was wonderful. It was. It was cold and it was windy and it was gloomy, but the history and almost the kind of the Gothic feel of the castles and stuff in that gloomy weather was okay.
Mhm.
You know, it kind of added to the atmosphere, and the pubs were good, and you know, and we had a good time, and you know, I was saddened that Debbie wasn't able to see that, but there was an aspect of that was a bit therapeutic that I hadn't thought of. It was all new experiences that Ty and I had together. So, you know, I didn't see Debbie at every turn, you know, in every place that we went. So, you know, that was therapeutic, and I and I enjoyed that. It was a good trip. I was glad I went. I think the kids were glad I went. Um,
You know, you said something there in passing that maybe I didn't know. I heard you say you had retired.
I did.
You had retired
Uh-huh.
from your profession in December,
Correct.
went on your trip. A month later, you're the new superintendent of Loogootee.
Yes. Yeah. You know, we just don't know.
I didn't realize. I
Yeah.
didn't realize you had retired.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's we don't know where our path's
Yeah.
going to go, you know. And I mean, as I said, Chip had an opportunity with Athletes in Action. That, you know, that worked out for him, and that opened up a potential door here for me for whatever time frame that they'll have me, or that I can work here. And um, again, it seemed like the timing of that was good. And I don't know if you knew, but 10 days after Debbie passed, when Taya was home for the funeral, um, Ty and I were hit by a drunk driver in Bloomington, um, T-boned by a drunk driver in Bloomington, and decimated my left shoulder in the accident. Luckily, Ty had some bruised ribs and maybe cracked ribs, and was bruised up some. Um, and I had a concussion, and just my left shoulder was just basically obliterated. Uh, the
Did you say this was a couple months after?
It was 10 days after
10
Debbie
days
passed.
after the
Yes.
well, I could see where faith might be
Yeah.
shaken
Yes.
even at that point.
Yeah. So they rushed me to the emergency room in Bloomington. Um, we had to call Luke up to come pick us up and get us. And Ty got checked out at the hospital as well. And they didn't admit me, but they kept me pretty much through the night because of the concussion. And they ended up sending me home. And yeah, the shoulder, I was in a sling for 8 weeks with the shoulder. And then I was in rehabilitation for 8 months. And it's never going to be the same. But, you know, it's getting there. It's functional. You know, I can.
Yeah. So you retired back in December. How long will we keep you here at Loogootee?
You know, again, I would say I'm privileged to be here. So maybe the question is, how long are they willing to keep me here at Loogootee? You know, might be the question.
Unfair question on my
Yeah,
point.
yeah. No, I figure any board meeting following which I'm still employed is a successful meeting.
All right.
You know,
Okay.
so
Day by day.
yeah. So I'm healthy. I'm relatively young. You know, I think I tell people I'm too young to be old,
Mhm.
but I'm too old to be young.
Right.
So
At perfect age.
yeah. So I need to work for a while, and I need to figure out what's next for me. You know, personally as well as professionally, and figure out where that road goes. And you know, I'm working on that. I've begun to work on that, and we'll see. So I think a while. You know,
Okay. All right.
a
Good.
while.
Typically, as I've said before, I give our guests topics that we might touch upon, and always there's something that I hadn't thought of that I'm going to touch upon now. It's it's a difficult subject, Dr. Harmon, but I know it's been a source of conversation. That's school safety. Obviously, what's gone on in the world, not just recently, but over the past several years, and maybe in the past or today, what conversations are you having in regards to school safety?
I have a unique perspective, I think, lucky to have a unique perspective, I think, to some degree on that, because one of the things that people might not know um, about me, among others, that I guess I'll save that till the others until that question comes up. But I've been a reserve sheriff's deputy for 13 years for Davies County. I was interested in doing that and took the training and completed that training. It would have been 2010, probably when I completed that, and then uh, began you have to do ride-alongs with working deputies, and you graduate. There's basically 3 levels, and when you get to the 3rd level, the sheriff calls you in and says, "Hey, I think you're ready to go out and work on your own." So I, I have the ability to get a car, sign out a car, and go out and work the road if I want, or assist deputies that are working. I haven't worked in a while, primarily due to the change in my circumstance with Debbie's passing, and also the damage to the left shoulder. I intend to work again at some point, but that has given me an insight into training and an insight into perspective of school safety, and it's concerning. Most of the attacks that you see are on what are called quote unquote soft targets. They are in locations where there's not a strong likelihood that there's going to be an armed response. Um, Churches, schools, recently been in the news, and I was pleased to see school resource officers come into effect to where there was more protection available, uh, keeping locked doors in place, going through training on what to do. All of those things are good. Uh, I, I I think the thing that concerns me is that someone who is dedicated to harm for whatever reason, either due to a mental imbalance or a grievance or whatever that tends to be, if someone is set on harm, that is difficult to completely prevent 100%. Are there many things that we can do to help in prevention? Absolutely. Um, and I think we are doing that and should do that. I think Indiana legislature will take a hard look, probably based on recent events, to how can we, what is the best uh, tack to go. Mental health. COVID has played a role. I think in mental health, we've seen that across society and in schools as well with students. So, I think I don't know what the absolute answer is. I do know we need to continue to keep looking for answers. We need to be diligent in doing that, and we need to make sure that we've done everything within our power to keep uh, every community's most valuable resource safe, and that's the children of any community.
I'm curious, have you seen the video of Southwestern Shelbyville High School? That's where my wife went to school, actually, and it's deemed the safest school in America. It's amazing. Now, the resources that were put into that
Yes.
are also
Yeah.
incredibly amazing
Yeah.
in regards to cost. But I didn't know if you had seen that.
I have seen that.
It
Yeah.
addresses a lot of things that you had said, but yet I've never heard of any other school, and doesn't mean I would have, but I've never heard of any other school at least duplicating that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with that process. I have seen videos of it and somewhat familiar with it. And the theory behind that is it throws up barriers at every point.
Doors are locked.
Yeah, the barriers.
Smoke.
Yeah, both visual. And that's what the Alice training, which is I'm trained in Alice active shooter training, both as a school official. I received that training, and I also received the Alice law enforcement side of the training. I received both, and in that training, it is a little different than the original active shooter training, which was basically hide, um, you know, secure yourself,
Keep the targets
seclude
away.
yourself,
Right.
yeah, and hide, regardless of what the circumstances are. Alice training is more active, more um, base your decisions on what the circumstances are. So it may be run if running is appropriate. It may be hide if hiding is appropriate. It may be fight if fighting is appropriate, depending on the circumstances. And they have scenarios on what those circumstances look like. As an example, if you hear shots and you're on another end of the building, complete end of the building, and you're near an exit, and your class is right there near the exit, Alice training teaches you to, you know, exit the building, go to the safe area. If the active shooter is in close proximity or right outside the room, then you're going to obviously hide, secure, barricade. Um, if it comes to fighting, and that's what you need to do at that point, that's what you do. So Alice training is kind of more designed to use someone's judgment based on the circumstances that are before them. But
Yeah, I want to end on a more lighter note, but I thought it was important at least to get your thoughts. And by the way, you saw Dr. Harmon's talents musically in the beginning. You'll also see it in the end. So don't turn us off just yet. But I want to circle back early on when you talked about your 10-year-old self. You talked about a pilot, and you said I'll talk more about that later. Let's hear more about your
yeah,
pilot
so
adventure.
I have the one thing that I have prided, I guess, myself on is I have a variety of interests, and I pursue those interests vigorously until I can't or I try to. So I uh, knew I was not going to be. I actually applied for the academies, for the Naval Academy, and got pretty close. Did not make the selection, but I had applied for that at the end of my high school career. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to be, a Navy pilot. I'm not going to be an Air Force pilot, but I could be a private pilot. So I started when I was in college taking classes, and didn't complete my final um, testing for the pilot's license. Um, Ended up, Debbie and I met during that process. Being a pilot is expensive, extremely expensive, and when you're single and young and you got a little and fairly um, conservative with money, I had the dollars to put into that. And when after Debbie and I got married, she felt like we needed a riding lawnmower. She felt
What?
like, yeah, she felt like maybe that was more
What's wrong
important
with the
than,
old push
yeah,
mower?
yeah, exactly, than my flying. So I didn't quite finish it, but I used to fly a lot. I could still fly on
Yeah.
my own, but I couldn't take passengers until I was
Mhm.
fully licensed. But I flew with other pilots, and I enjoyed doing that. And I may very well go back to that. I may go back to flying. Um, a lot of people don't know I was in karate for 20 years. I was really involved in that and enjoyed doing that.
So what level did you get?
I ended up being uh, it would have been a green belt or blue belt. I ended up being a blue belt. So I started out in Hapkido in college. There weren't any Hapkido instructors around here. Don Ritchie was a local instructor at the time for Taekwondo, and Daryl Brower was up in Odin, um, and he was a instructor in Taekwondo as well. So I had to switch arts forms. Hapkido is a Korean form of martial arts, and Taekwondo is a Japanese form of, of martial arts. And so I switched, so I lost some belts. And my brother Brad actually is a black belt. He was in with me, and he was probably in it for 20 years as well. You get to a point where you've had injuries, and you can't do that anymore.
To get to that point,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't pick a fight with you,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I don't know that I'm very dangerous anymore.
Bad left shoulder.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Bad knee. A couple knee surgeries. I don't feel like I'm that dangerous anymore. But
I would ask you to get up and give me a demonstration, but I don't think either one of us feel like standing up right now, right?
yeah. No. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's Greg. I tell you, it's worked for me just to make it to the car to get to work in the morning. So. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it has.
Yeah.
Well, I like to always ask the subject, as we end the show, I guess. What things, if anything, it's your platform that we didn't talk about that you'd like to, um, anything at all, so that whenever we're done, we don't say, and we will anyway, oh, I wish I would have thought of that.
I think I think if I've learned anything over the past year, it's you have to enjoy every day because you don't know what tomorrow holds. And I know that's a cliche, and I know a lot of people say that, but when it comes to reality in your life, um, the, my last words to Debbie, I don't think I could probably get through telling you, but I'm very thankful for what my last words to her were. It had to do with our anniversary,
Sure.
and I gained some comfort from that. And so, I tell people now, if you are interested in doing something, uh, pursue it vigorously, until you can't. Um, and no matter what that is, you know, pursue it. Go after it. Go do that until it becomes unattainable or until you can't do it. And I needed to talk myself, into that. Uh, I've seen people who've gone through some degree of tragedy, and they shut down, or develop um, bad, go down a bad road, or develop bad habits, or do things that are destructive in nature. And I didn't want to do that. One, it's not my nature. Two, that's not what Debbie would have wanted me to do. It's not what my family would have wanted me to do. And so I needed to try to get through that process and walk through that and as I said, get to a position where I'm more thankful for what I gained in those 36 years um, than just only focusing on what I lost. Is a person going to focus on what they've lost? Yeah, absolutely, you are. Are you going to remember that? Yeah, you are. But getting to a point to move ahead and make the most of whatever time I have left. I'm not a young man. You're much younger than me, but
2 years, but I look much longer. I look
do.
much
Yes,
younger.
you do look much younger.
Yeah.
But I need to I need to stay focused on doing things that are of value and to me and to others. And I think this the job at Loogootee. I think if I can bring any value to the students I serve, uh, I'm going to feel good about that. If I can add anything to their educational attainment, their educational career, if I can support the staff, the job of the superintendency is uh, not what it's not as involved in the classroom as I would like it to be. I try to get out and about and in the building, but I have to maintain those resources. I have to manage those resources in order for the teachers to do what they do best. And to be honest, Greg, that the magic happens in a classroom. That's when you've got students that are prepared to learn, that are sitting in front of a teacher that's prepared to teach, and you see that happening, and you watch that, and you view that. I mean, that's really impressive. I mean, that's really impressive to see.
Clearly, the passion has not subsided,
No, no, no.
even in the late stages.
Yeah, no. I still have that. I have that. I enjoy doing it, and we'll continue, and we'll see where life takes me from here.
Brian Harmon, thank you. A pleasure, and welcome to Loogootee.
Thank you, Grant. I appreciate it.
Dr. Brian Harmon. And stay tuned because there's another song from Dr. Harmon coming up. But Dr. Brian Harmon, our subject today, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sitting here talking to him on getting to know your Indiana neighbor.
stuck on you. Got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. Needing a friend, and the way I feel now, I guess I'll be with you till the end. Guess I'm on my way. Mighty glad you stayed. I'm stuck on you. Been a fool too long. I guess it's time for me to come on home. Guess I'm on my way. It's so hard to see how a woman like you could wait around for a man like me. Guess I'm on my way. Mighty glad you stayed. Oh, I'm leaving on that midnight train tomorrow, and I know just where I'm going. I packed up my troubles and I throw them all away. But right now, little darling, I'm coming home to stay. I'm stuck on you. Got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. Needing a friend, and the way I feel now, I guess I'll be with you till the end. Guess I'm on my way. Mighty glad you stayed.